In the years following the American Revolution, the newly independent United States faced a critical challenge: how to establish a functional and lasting system of government. The Articles of Confederation, ratified in 1781, had proven inadequate in addressing the nation's needs, and a growing chorus of voices called for a stronger central authority. This lesson explores the events, debates, and compromises that paved the way for the Constitutional Convention of 1787 and the eventual ratification of the United States Constitution. The Articles of Confederation, the first governing document of the United States, created a loose confederation of sovereign states with a weak central government. While this system had served its purpose during the Revolutionary War, its inherent flaws became increasingly apparent in the years that followed. One of the most glaring weaknesses of the Articles was the absence of an executive branch. Without a chief executive or national leader, the country lacked a unified direction and struggled to enforce its laws and treaties. Additionally, the central government had no power to regulate commerce between states or with foreign nations, hindering economic growth and trade. Perhaps most critically, the Articles of Confederation did not grant the central government the power to levy taxes. This meant that the government relied entirely on voluntary contributions from states, many of which were reluctant or unable to provide funds. As a result, the government struggled to pay off debts from the Revolutionary War, maintain an adequate military force, or fund essential public services. The growing dissatisfaction with the Articles of Confederation came to a head in 1786 with Shays Rebellion, an armed uprising of farmers in western Massachusetts protesting excessive taxation and economic hardship. The weak central government, lacking a standing army, could not effectively quell the rebellion, which exposed the nation's vulnerability to internal unrest. As the weaknesses of the Articles became increasingly apparent, influential leaders like James Madison, Alexander Hamilton, and George Washington recognized the need for a more robust and centralized system of government. This realization, coupled with the growing instability and economic turmoil, set the stage for the Constitutional Convention of 1787. In May 1787, delegates from 12 of the 13 states, Rhode Island opted not to send delegates, gathered in Philadelphia with the stated purpose of revising the Articles of Confederation. However, it soon became clear that a more comprehensive overhaul was necessary. The delegates at the Constitutional Convention represented a diverse array of interests and perspectives. Key figures included James Madison, often referred to as the father of the Constitution for his instrumental role in drafting the document, George Washington, who served as the convention's president, and Benjamin Franklin, the elder statesman whose wisdom and experience were invaluable. One of the most contentious issues facing the convention was the structure of the legislative branch and the balance of power between large and small states. The Virginia Plan, proposed by Madison, called for a bicameral legislature with representation based on population, favoring larger states. In contrast, the New Jersey Plan advocated for equal representation for all states, regardless of size. The Great Compromise, also known as the Connecticut Compromise, resolved this impasse. It established a bicameral Congress with a House of Representatives based on population and a Senate with equal representation for each state. This compromise balanced the interests of both large and small states, ensuring that no single group would dominate the legislative process. Another critical issue debated at the convention was the institution of slavery. The Three-Fifths Compromise, a contentious bargain, determined that for the purposes of representation and taxation, each enslaved person would be counted as 3/5 of a free person. While this compromise allowed the Constitution to move forward, it underscored the deep divisions and moral quandaries surrounding slavery. The delegates also grappled with the question of how to elect the chief executive. The Electoral College system emerged as a compromise, blending elements of popular vote and state-based representation. Under this system, each state would appoint a number of electors based on its representation in Congress, and these electors would cast votes for the president. Throughout the convention, delegates engaged in heated debates, made difficult compromises, and sought to balance the competing interests of states, regions, and economic groups. The resulting document, while imperfect, laid the foundation for a strong, centralized government capable of addressing the nation's needs. Even after the Constitutional Convention concluded, the path to ratification was not without obstacles. The Constitution faced opposition from those who feared a powerful central government known as the Anti-Federalists. They argued that the new system would threaten individual liberties and state sovereignty. In response, supporters of the Constitution, dubbed the Federalists, launched a campaign to promote ratification. The Federalist Papers, a series of essays written by Alexander Hamilton, James Madison, and John Jay, played a pivotal role in swaying public opinion. These essays, published in newspapers across the states, provided a detailed defense of the Constitution and addressed the concerns raised by the Anti-Federalists. Hamilton, Madison, and Jay articulated the need for a strong central government capable of protecting the nation's interests, fostering economic growth, and safeguarding individual rights. The Federalist Papers were instrumental in shaping the ratification debates that took place in each state. Ultimately, after a hard-fought campaign, the Constitution was ratified by the required 9 states in 1788, with the last 2 states, North Carolina and Rhode Island, ratifying it in 1789 and 1790, respectively. The ratification of the Constitution marked a significant turning point in the history of the United States. While the road to its adoption was fraught with challenges and compromises, the Constitution established a framework for a robust and enduring system of government. It balanced the powers of the federal government with those of the states, enshrined essential rights and liberties, and laid the groundwork for the nation's future growth and prosperity. Today, the Constitution remains a living document, subject to interpretation and amendment, but its core principles continue to shape the fabric of American democracy. The road to its creation was a long and winding one, marked by fierce debates, difficult compromises, and the collective efforts of visionary leaders who recognized the need for a strong, unified nation.